Hi everybody, my name is Brady and I'm a 19th century American historian, and we are back with another React video, and today we're going to be doing more Alternate History Hub. It feels like it's been a little bit since I've done any alternate history stuff, and the question we have today is a pretty big one. What if Pangea still existed? So Pangea is the supercontinent. So it's pretty much universally accepted that continental drift has broken up all the many land masses from one large space, which was Pangea. I don't know what kind of implications this has. Obviously, we're not going to be getting anything quite like what we have today. I'm not sure. This seems like too big of a question. Like, I don't even know what direction he can really go with this sort of thing. I'd imagine he's going to have to keep it kind of broad, considering how much gets changed from this. We don't end up with any of the countries like they are now. Their neighbors are going to be different otherwise, and there's just too much, honestly. But I would love to see how he takes this question on. So let's get it started. I'll give you my thoughts throughout.
Continents haven't always looked the way they are. Hopefully this isn't a new fact for you. Over its vast lifespan, Earth has mashed its land masses together. In fact, over 300 million years ago, all of the Earth's continents were connected into one large supercontinent called Pangea, surrounded by one superocean called Panthalassa.
That's actually a new concept to me. Not the Pangea thing, the super ocean. I guess I never really thought about the name of the super ocean. I guess I just thought of it, okay, the ocean is like everything else, because when you have a supercontinent, I suppose everything else is ocean, and why have a distinguishing term if you have nothing to distinguish it from? But I guess that comes with Pangea as well. In that case, there's really nothing to distinguish it from, but it does refer to something in relation to what we have now, so I kind of get that part. But that's a new term for me. I never actually even wondered what the ocean would be referred to at the time.
Lhasa. For over 100 million years, the Earth had only one continent and one ocean, until breaking up and eventually forming the continents we see today. Boo! What if in an alternate timeline, Pangea still existed? The continent simply never broke apart, and if humans arose to spread across the world, how would civilization be affected? Before answering these questions, we need to discuss a few facts. This is all theoretical. If Pangea was still around, it's best to assume humans wouldn't be. Evolution is a cause and effect process, affected by the environment and geography.
Yeah, this is a very good point here. There's a very good chance, like, butterfly effect. You go back and change one thing, a million other things could change, and would inevitably change. Though it's possible we could get something human-like, it's very possible that they develop differently, and that if we do end up with humans, they might not be the same as humans right now. A lot of who knows what sorts of evolutionary traits would never become necessary. There's so much to that. That's actually very interesting.
The simplest change in climate can affect the lineage of a species, forcing them to adapt or to go extinct. Without an Africa factor for apes to be able to rise, Homo sapiens ancestors would have gone down a much different alternate path. This said, we can still place humans on Pangea for the sake of the theory. Plus, it would be boring without us. Humans are resourceful and would be able to spread and conquer this Pangea world. But geographically, what would this planet look like? Pangea's specifics are a mystery to us. We can only get a basic look of what its shape was.
I'd imagine, like, if you don't have the ocean problem, that changes so much. The way we treat the ocean would be completely different, because you'd really have less reason to go out to other parts of the world via water if everything is all connected. So maybe that would change our emphasis on just everything naval, I suppose. That would be massive. although traveling by the water would be, it would still be a thing, you'd have no reason to go out anywhere because there's nothing out there. Maybe there would be explorers who still end up trying to discover new things, but it turns out in this scenario, there's nothing to be discovered. It's all in one place.
Fix are a mystery to us. We can only get a basic look of what its shape was and hypothesize from there. Unlike today, where most land is in the northern hemisphere, most land on Pangea was south of the equator. Long mountain ranges arose in the center of Pangea from connecting continents, similar to India pushing up against Asia, creating the Himalayas. Because of these mountains, arid desert landscapes formed due to the lack of rainfall. It's been theorized mega monsoons swept from the ocean and brought rain to the equatorial regions. This would replenish the vast rainforests which span the equator, which is present-day North America and Western Europe. Fun fact, a lot of that coal used to bring Britain into the industrial age and mined in West Virginia was from the lush tropical forest millions of years ago. Yay, science. Back on track.
So this is a rather difficult thing to do. I'd imagine they have at least a decent estimate as to which land masses. I know they have like a rough idea of what Pangea would look like, but I'd imagine in their like theoretical map of it, they have an okay idea as to which continents end up where in relation to the other continents. So that definitely helps. So if you have to look into natural resources or whatever, they may end up in different places as far as where they land on the globe goes. They might be further north, they might be further south, there might be climate mixed in with these natural resources that totally changes the game. I am surprised that he would dare take this on, but it does seem like he's keeping it broad. But I am curious about what the human element will be.
Tropical forest millions of years ago. Yay, science. Back on track, human civilization would be drawn to the coastline, just as in our timeline. No surprise. Tribes and nomadic people would roam the less hospitable lands. Even if all of humanity shared the same continent, this does not mean they would be more connected. If large deserts or rainforests did form in the center of Pangea, they would just be as limiting to communication between people as any ocean would be. We see this in Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa is connected to Asia, just as it is with Europe. Yet there was much less communication. Very little trade occurred, not counting East Africa and Madagascar. Parts of sub-Saharan Africa were almost the equivalent of the Americas in its isolation, which is why tribes like the Zulu still use spears up against British machine guns.
That is a very interesting point he makes here, because often you would think of Africa, although it's, I guess in an official sense, part of the old world, as opposed to the Americas, which are the new world, it seems to have a lot more in common with the new world than it does with the old world, at least in some cases. Of course, there are outliers in Africa, but yeah, there are differences, and I guess he makes a very good point about the degree of isolation there. It'd be so easy to lump Africa in with the old world, but making this distinction makes a huge difference. And also really lets you know that it's not just the ocean that kept people away from each other. There's so many other factors. And I like that he points out the deserts and stuff that would form there. Like, that would be a huge obstacle. And I'm very curious about, it's hard to imagine the scale of this supercontinent, because it really is huge. The distance they'd have to travel would be absolutely insane to be more connected with certain parts of I'm going to say continent. I opt for the term supercontinent because this is, the scale is just something that I could hardly imagine.
This was because of the natural barriers of the Saharan Desert and the Congo jungle. Both regions were very difficult to cross before the Industrial Revolution and create a rift in communication between civilizations of East Asia and Europe with sub-Saharan Africa. The point is, we could still see the same effect in Pangea. Deserts could split east and west, while equator rainforests could split north and south. Present-day North America and Eurasian peoples could develop a culture independent of South American, African, and Australian people. This is all theoretical, though. There is no 100% accurate way to predict how things would have been. This was just my 2 cents on the matter.
There's not even like a 2% way of predicting. When he says there's no 100%, like there's not even like a 1% chance that you could guess this properly, because the factors are just so overly complicated that like it's like when you try to explain the consequences of time travel in a fictional universe. They talk about butterfly effect. One little thing impacts a million other different things. This is that on the most, like, as far back as you can go, I guess, for humans. I guess it's even further back in that sense, because there's very, very little chance that we get humans as they are now. Like I said, you could get something human-like, but there would definitely be some sort of different developments that would pop up from this sort of thing. I really like this question. This is cool.
Pangea itself is much of a mystery, but it's always fun to explore the possibilities in geography. What do you think the world would be like if Pangea still existed? Say it in the comments. Like us on Facebook and subscribe if you have not done so. This is Cody from the Alternate History Hub.
Thanks, Cody. You're the man. That was a fun one. Of course, it feels a little small, obviously, for such a big question, but you couldn't ask any more of him when it comes to something like this, because it's really one of the hardest questions to answer as far as alternate history questions go, because it totally changes everything that we know about our existence, really. It changes the factors going back further than we can even really comprehend. Like, he can put a number on it, but can we really understand with our tiny monkey brains? Only abstractly, in a sense, I suppose. That was cool. And I want to do more of the alternate history stuff. A lot of the alternate history videos I find are really long, and I haven't had a lot of time on my hands, so I've opted to do some other things. That explains why I went for a pretty short one today. But I want to do more of those, especially once I finish my classes for the semester and I have a little more time on my hands. There's a lot I want to do when I have a little bit more time on my hands. So we'll see what happens when we get there. Thank you for watching, and if you have any other alternate history videos from him or anybody else that you think I should check out, pop them in the comment section below, and I will see you guys next time. Later.